This is on or not. I'll just talk loudly if it's not. Hello everybody, my name is Witt. I run a company called Build Witt. I'm here to talk about my absolute favorite subject, and that is not attracting the next generation, but developing our workforce. And I'll explain what the heck I mean by that in a little bit. You're probably wondering, what does this kid know about developing our workforce? I probably shaved, 5 days ago, and this is the best I got. So I am a kid, I'm in my 20s, but I get to, I'm in a very unique position. So this year, I've done 9 countries on 4 continents, 30 US states, and in those different places I go, I've visited hundreds of Dirt World operations, and I've talked with hundreds of Dirt World leaders and thousands of people in the Dirt World. I travel around the world, around our country, and visit the industry, and talk to people and tell stories about the industry. And this year, I've been to some really, really cool places, had some amazing experiences. On the far left that's the main runway in Zurich International Airport about midnight. They're demolishing the runway. They're taking it from concrete to asphalt. So, big time stuff. But they had $20,000 a minute LDs if they went over 6 a.m. So they had 70 sections to replace 70 nights. An aircraft came in 6 a.m. every day, and they didn't miss a single minute. Middle is Alberta. We went up to the oil sands. We're going back in January. Some of the largest mining operations in the world. That's a 150-ton excavator, fully dressed on a float, just headed right down the road. And that's a small cleanup machine up there. And then Saudi Arabia, I went out there in January. You can't really see it all that well, but those are D11s and D9s pushing off basically a cliff to go build a road down to the bottom, where they're of course building a new Formula One track, because what else would you put in the middle of the desert? And all those operators right there are sitting on prayer mats, and it's prayer time. So the whole operation shuts down at prayer time, and they pray right in the cut. So a lot of people know what I do because I share these experiences online. So when I come to these sites, they always ask me one question in particular, and that is, how's everybody else feeling right now? And I would say everybody's uneasy. There is fuel, there's materials, there's equipment availability, there's changes in the market. No one really knows what the heck's going on, what 2023 is going to be looking like. But there's one topic in particular that everybody is really nervous about. They can't figure it out, and that's people. I'm not going to ask for a raise of hands, but are you in that group? Because that's most everybody I talk to. That's me. It's nerve-wracking. And we can view it in one of two ways. We can kind of view it in the old-timer mentality. Rudy Rose doesn't view it this way, but I'm using Rudy as my example. We can kind of just say, kids just don't want to work anymore. And then just throw up our hands. And just hope it figures itself out. Kind of the glass half empty perspective. Or, and this is my perspective, I have to view it in this perspective. I have to be optimistic. I have to be glass half full. And that is, hey, this is a big challenge to overcome. We are going to have to do things differently. We are going to have to think a little differently. But this is the biggest opportunity our industry has seen in decades. And if you don't agree with me, hopefully you understand my perspective by the time we're done here. And hopefully you have a few takeaways that you can take back to your businesses and keep moving in the right direction, help our industry overcome this challenge. Before we get into the problem, just a little bit of background on me. I have always loved heavy equipment. That's me, second to the right. That's a bucket of a loader at the Empire Cat Mueller in Mesa, Arizona. I was the coolest kid in kindergarten. I mean, your birthday party at the Caterpillar dealer, you are a big deal. So I've always loved heavy equipment. You're probably thinking, well, your dad, I'm sure, was in construction, or your grandpa, or your uncle. This is my father, and if you look very closely, you'll notice that's not a job site trailer. And he's not wearing a high-vis vest because he's a tax lawyer. So I grew up as white-collar as it got. I didn't even think about construction. You didn't even look down upon it. It just wasn't even something you thought about. And I make this point because we're kind of running out of the people that grew up on their dad's lap on the bulldozer. We need to find people that have never thought about this industry before, introduce them to it, and bring them in. And I'm a good example of that. Senior year, high school. This road project pops up in my neighborhood. It's enormous concrete pipe, over 100-inch concrete pipe. There's a forklift moving them around. Behind that forklift's a 385. I was enamored by this job. I would go there after high school every day and I would watch the work. And I was thinking about my career and I thought, why don't I call this company and ask to meet with the owner? So it's Pearson Construction Corporation. I asked to meet with Mr. Pearson. He says yes. I sit down with him and I say, well, how'd you start a construction company? And how can I get started in construction? Can I have a job? And he says, no, because I can't legally hire you yet. You're 17. Call me back when you're 18. So I call him back when I'm 18. He says, sure, I'll start you as a laborer. So I started as a laborer on a pipe crew. I had never been on a job site before. I had to go to Target to go buy blue jeans. I never even had jeans. I didn't even have pants. I go to the swap meet to buy some orange shirts because I think that's what construction workers wear. I buy some terribly uncomfortable boots, and I just have at it. I just keep my head down. I keep my mouth shut. I work hard. I learn as much as I can. It's miserable. It's hot. It's Phoenix, Arizona in the summer. Underground utility work. But I fell in love with the industry, and I knew that this was the place for me. So Mr. Pearson said, go get as much experience as you can. Study engineering. So I study engineering. I somehow get an engineering degree, just barely. And I go to work for as many companies as I could. So in college, I worked for 5 companies. One was Skanska, doing bridge work on the railroad in California. Another was Witt, doing drilling and blasting in Washington. And then out of school, I go into road construction in Texas. So that was my plan, was to go into the industry, save up, become a contractor. But things started to change a little bit when I was looking at social media my senior year of college, and I wanted to use it as a tool to essentially grow my career. It was kind of a selfish endeavor. And I started posting my pictures and videos from my time in the construction industry online. I noticed there wasn't a lot of storytelling in our industry, but it was so cool. And so I thought, why don't I just tell my story? So it really takes off. A software company finds me just a few months into my full-time construction career. They asked me to go run a program to inspire the next generation. I do that for a few months, and then it gets to a point where I just say, I'm going to do this on my own. So 8 months after graduating college, I quit my job, I move in with my dad, and I start basically messaging all of you on LinkedIn and saying, hey, can I come out to your job site? I love the industry. I'd love to take some pictures, love to share what you do. And most of you, rightly so, tell me to kick rocks. But every once in a while, someone would say, yeah, sure, kid, you can come out. And I would drive. I had a little Toyota Camry. I would go wherever in the United States I needed to go to capture the industry. And I would take pictures. And I'd share the pictures with them. And then they started to ask for, do you do websites? And do you do videos? And do you do graphic design? I didn't have any of those skill sets. And so I needed to hire people and build a team. So we built, a few years ago, a small team focused on marketing for heavy civil construction, infrastructure, and natural resources. That's all we did. But we had one problem. Life was really good, but we had one problem. And that was this sign on the wall in our office that says, making the dirt world a better place. About a year and a half into business, we asked ourselves, why are we in business? What's the point? Yeah, we're having fun, but what's the point? And we thought, well, we're here to help make the dirt world a better place. And what does that mean? It means first helping the industry overcome this workforce challenge we're facing. So we needed to go beyond storytelling. That was a piece of it, but that wasn't going to really drive significant change. So last year, we raised $10 million from a contractor and a cat dealer in investment, and we built a training platform specifically for the industry to allow people out in the field to train every day, 2 to 3 minutes, on how to inspect the machine, how to lead more effectively. We're getting into mental health. We created over 1,000 training videos just this year, and we have about 150 contractors using it. It's really cool stuff, and this is something I honestly wish I had when I was 18 starting out in the industry. So this is our team, about 75 full-time people now. We have a marketing business, we have a media business, and now we have that software business. And I say this, I point this out because my job isn't speaking, my job is helping to build a company. All of the principles I'm about to talk about, we try our best to practice at our own business too. And it's worked pretty well for us. And then social media, it started from me just sharing a few pictures on Instagram to now we reach millions of people around the world. And just out of curiosity, has anybody seen our stuff online? Great, okay, cool. And that's just an illustration. You've all seen some of my stuff and you know something about me. I don't necessarily know you. And that's hugely powerful. That's how I built my business, and that's something you can leverage with your businesses as well. So, the problem. First, take a drink of water here. The dirt world is essential. And when I say dirt world, it's anything that kind of interacts with the dirt. Anything on the horizontal plane. So it's roads, it's pipelines, it's bridges, it's infrastructure, it's natural resources. We talk a lot about essential workers. Doctors, truck drivers, teachers. Well, a doctor's worth nothing without clean water. A truck driver's worth nothing without a road. A teacher's worth nothing without a classroom. That's what we provide society. If we go away, society dissolves. We're essential. That's a key point, essential. However, we have this really big problem. So this is ABC, this is all of construction, but there's already this massive gap to make sure we keep up with demand right now. And demand doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon, especially with the infrastructure bill, CHIPS Act. There's a lot of money out there that needs to be spent. The real problem is, can we meet that demand? And then it gets worse. The NCCR estimates 41% of the current workforce is set to retire by 2031. And it takes 11 years to train someone to fully replace those people retiring. But that's less than 11 years away. 40% of our workforce, we're already feeling the pressure right now. And this has just begun. That's an enormous problem. And I just said we're essential. So we can't just tell society, sorry, we couldn't figure out the roads thing. So whatever roads you got, that's what we got. How do we solve this problem? Because we have to. Before we get into the solution or solutions, if someone says there's one solution, they're lying. It starts with what the heck's happened at this macro level. And this is all my best guess. All of this is subject to be wrong, but this is my best guess right now. So if you look, the biggest companies in the United States in 1917, there's U.S. Steel, Bell Telephone, Standard Oil, Bethlehem Steel, Armour Company. They're all companies that made things. They took resources and they created things out of those resources. It's manual work. On the right, now it's, of course, Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook. And they're companies that really think about things. They don't necessarily make things. And we can demonize this all day long and these damn technology companies. But we've all benefited as a result from it. That's why our economy has roared. And I'll just point out, I was born in 1995, right when things started to take off. And that, I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. But we've transitioned, our economy has transitioned from manual work to knowledge work. We're still in that manual work world. We take raw materials, we create things. That's manual work. But we're operating now in this knowledge work world. And if we keep operating, just acting like it's still this manual world, we're going to continue to lose when it comes to workforce. So we have to accept the reality that the world has transitioned and is transitioning to a different place than even where it was 20 years ago. But we get sometimes confused thinking we have to compete with that. And I don't believe we do. We just have to understand that the world has changed and modify our approach a little bit. But I think, and I'm so optimistic about our industry, because it's aligned with human nature. We didn't evolve on a computer screen. We didn't evolve to do knowledge work. We've evolved to make things. And so if you look at the dirt world, there's camaraderie. You work outdoors, different places, immediate gratification. You serve the community, nonstop challenges. You go out to the industry, any job site, people are so proud. That's why I've gravitated to this world. I grew up around finance and real estate, and every professional sports team, their owners sent their kids to school. I grew up. But no one was really radiating this sense of pride that these people that work out in the field, that build things have. You go to knowledge work, and a lot of times it's that corporate culture, work at the same desk, hard to visualize impact. You might serve people, maybe, and same day is kind of on repeat. And I'm generalizing here, of course. I'm painting with a very broad brush. That's the only brush I have. But this is just to illustrate, our industry is fantastic. We have our problems that we need to figure out, but we don't need to go compete head-to-head with knowledge work. That is what makes our industry special. We just have to recognize that that is now where the world is at. And we don't need something that drives me nuts is these marketing campaigns for our industry that try to make it look pretty or clean or whatever it is. No, that's why it's special. That's why people are so proud. We need to focus on that. So the current solution right now is just pay people more money. Everybody's wages are increasing substantially this year, probably have been for the past few years, and the trend is not slowing down anytime soon. You just have to keep paying people more money. But this is assuming that money is the key factor. And again, we're operating on this kind of older operating system. And in that older operating system, money was that key factor. But now the world has transitioned. There's a lot more opportunities today than even 20 years ago. And now money is a key factor. It's still important. You still have to pay your mortgage, send your kids to school, whatever it is. But it's not the factor. And if this was the solution, we wouldn't have the problem. It would have gone away. We've all raised wages substantially. I think this is great, but that's not the solution. I think we all know that. And this is to illustrate. My kids seeing me unhappy every day going to work just wasn't worth the money. This was a guy that worked for a company for over a decade, was a huge fan of the company he left, but it just wasn't, the money just wasn't worth it anymore. And this is where the whole next generation really is at. They need that basic need met. They need the money. But then after that, it's, well, what else? What's next? What's next? So then kind of the second piece of the current solution is, well, we just need to attract more people. If we attract more people, we're good to go. But the problem with this is, that's assuming the whole system, our operating system, adds up with where reality is today. And that's just clearly not the case. That's clearly not the case. How many people have you hired on that are new to the industry that just wash out immediately? That happens all the time. If it was an attraction problem, my qualm with the whole attract mindset is it doesn't first take responsibility for the problem and say, hey, what can I do with my business first before I focus on the outside, before I focus on the attraction? And with what I'm about to talk about, the attraction, if we do some of these right things within our businesses, the attraction will take care of itself. So, getting into the solution, this is APAI Grading Company. They have about 750 people in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. That's Eddie, one of their trainers on their people development team. And this is a quote from Brian, who owns the company. We had to be really honest. I was hating life. It wasn't fun anymore. Retention was terrible. We couldn't hire people. Does that sound familiar? I've heard that a lot this year. I've heard that a lot. I went home one night and looked in the mirror and realized no one was going to do anything about this. I have to change. What I've done for the last 10 years is no longer working. So in other words, he went home and recognized that the guy looking back at him in the mirror was the one responsible for helping overcome his workforce challenge. No one is coming to save us. Everybody depends upon us, but no one is coming to save us. It's our responsibility. If you're a Jocko fan, extreme ownership, it's all on you. And it's a really scary thought at first, because it's all on you. But it's freeing once you get past that fear, because that means we have the ability to really change things. We have the ability to overcome this challenge. We have the ability to change the narrative. We can solve this problem. We can solve it. I don't feel like we need to be sitting here 5 years from now and having the same discussion. The ability to change this is in our hands. So, why I think our industry has struggled with it is because it's a human problem. We're really good at things we can measure. Concrete, asphalt, production, fuel burn, equipment hours, whatever it is. We're good at things we can measure, but people, they're just kind of squishy. They're hard to measure. They're hard to get your hands around, which is why they're special, but that makes it a challenge at the same time, of course. I've heard so many times, if it weren't for the people, this would all be easy, right? Building things. But if you align your business with human nature, I think you'll win. And I spend a lot of time studying psychology and human nature. And one of my favorite people within the field is Abraham Maslow. He came up with something called the hierarchy of needs. The hierarchy of needs it's a pyramid, and for those of you unfamiliar, you start at the bottom of the pyramid. So the bottom of the pyramid is physiological needs. So your food, water, things your body needs to function. If you're starving, you're not worried about anything else. You just are worried about food. And then the next level is safety, security. Are you in a safe place, home, that kind of thing. And as you meet these needs, you continue to go up the pyramid. So then you go to belongingness and love, connection, relationships, esteem, prestige, and ultimately the top is self-actualization, becoming all that you can be as a human being. And that's different for everybody. That should be everybody's goal in life, is to become all that they can be. And more importantly, since this room is a room full of leaders, that should be the goal of any leader, is getting the people you're fortunate enough to lead on the path to becoming all that they can be as well. And the more you can do that, the more successful you'll be, by a long shot. So I think this hierarchy of needs applies to the workplace as well. And again, I've just kind of made this up. And all of this is based not on my opinion, but what I've seen companies that have successfully overcome this challenge like Hoopla do. This is based on all of my conversations and everything I've seen from my travels. But I think it's on a hierarchy as well. And every company is in kind of a different place of that. But at the bottom, there's pay, benefits, flexibility. And then you have trust and belonging. And then recognition and growth. And finally, the purpose and full potential. And I'm going to kind of get into each one of these here. So, if we go to pay, benefits, flexibility. It starts with, are you meeting your people's basic needs? That's probably the number one reason why people still leave. I'm just not getting the money I need. And a lot of times you have to ask your people what their basic needs are. So it starts with money benefits. If you're not there, nothing else matters beyond that. So you have to ask yourself, are we really meeting our people's basic needs? And I underline though basic, because I see a lot of job ads saying we pay great, we have great benefits. It's a basic need now. That was special a while back. It's not special today. That's what everybody else also offers. We have to go beyond that. And I think we can very easily as an industry. But just acknowledge that that's a basic need. You have to meet that first before anything matters, but you need to go beyond that at the same time. You have entry-level pathways. Why do kids go to college? It's an entry level, it's a pathway. They tell me where to study, how to apply, how to go get my debt, what classes to take, where to live. Everything is prescribed for me. If you, as an 18-year-old, want to get into construction, I get asked by kids all the time. All the time. How do I get into the industry? I don't know. I don't have a good answer. That's our number one problem. And that's because we don't have those defined pathways. If you don't have that defined entry-level position at your business, you're going to indefinitely have a workforce problem. Because experienced people don't exist. And we all know that. They're all working right now. We have to create new pathways into the industry. And it starts with, well, what is our new pathway into our business? And that's different, union, non-union, but it's the same thing, ultimately. And then do your people have the flexibility to live their lives outside of work? What's happening is, as we get squeezed, we're working more hours. We're going in the opposite direction. Hey, we need to work Saturday, Sunday. Hey, we need to work nights this week. We're going the opposite direction, but people want flexibility to live their lives. I've had so many people in the field say, yeah, I can't even take a sick day right now. I have sick days, but I can't even afford, I don't feel like I have the ability to take a sick day. I don't feel like I can take time off right now. That's detrimental to everybody. Like I talked to one company, they said the simplest thing they did was they stopped 2 hours earlier on Fridays. So everybody goes home at 3. We don't need that much more flexibility, but we do need some level of flexibility. Because we have all these other careers over here saying, yeah, you want flexibility? Here you go. And all these people that want flexibility, because now money's not the most important thing, they're going over there as a result. So what are some things we can do within our businesses to offer just a little bit more flexibility? I understand the realities of the schedule and weather and this and that. But where are those opportunities to offer just a little bit more flexibility? So, great, we meet those kind of basic needs. Now we go to trust and belonging. Do you trust your people? This is big. In that older operating system, it was, well, I give people a paycheck. So because I give them a paycheck, I deserve them to be trusting. I deserve for them to be hardworking. But that's not how reality works anymore. A business has to trust their people first. If you don't trust anybody, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Everybody becomes untrusting. But if you trust people and then you act trustworthy as a result, 9 out of 10 times human beings, they want to be trustworthy. They want to do a great job. You want to fit in. So how can you trust your people? A good example of this I see is, a company will hire a young haul truck driver. They'll give him the keys to a $500,000 haul truck. But they won't give him a company sweatshirt because he might leave in a week. What does that say to that individual? That says, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. Do we trust our people? Are your senior leaders present? Ask Herb Sargent shaking the hand of a dozer operator at a landfill project in Maine. Sargent Corporation. It's easy to get bogged down in the office with the submittals and the estimates and whatever it is. But do we build those relationships with the people executing upon the work? Everybody in the office, we're not line items. We're not line items. We're not billable. It's the people finishing, for example. Those are the people driving everything. The people in the office are essential. But there's a reason why there's this divide versus office and field. It can be broken down first by the people in the office, starting with the senior leaders, just to be present a little bit more. All it takes is shaking someone's hand and asking how their children are. Maybe just once every 6 months, so that person feels that they're cared for. And if their basic needs are met, and someone comes with them with $1 raise, they're a lot less likely to leave, because I feel cared for. I feel like I belong. I'm trusted. I don't need to go somewhere else. And then do you train in leadership in life? So we talked about skills training, but leadership in life is huge too. Leadership. What's happening is you have a paving crew. Your foreman retires or leaves. What do? You look at your paving crew. Who's your top performer? Now they're the foreman. They're the top performer. But being a foreman is a totally different skill set. That's a leadership position. But they don't have the leadership skills. So they default to how they've been managed. And that's probably not the best way to do things. So now they're managing everybody in a poor way. Now your crew is either unproductive or worse, they just leave. And you're looking at your top person like, what happened? Well, they didn't have the skill set. We have a lot of managers. We need more leaders. So what can we do as businesses to help teach people how to lead effectively? And that applies to everybody. And then life. Your production numbers, your safety rules, that doesn't matter if someone's worried about missing a mortgage payment, for example. We're a seasonal business. I hear all the time, well, they just don't know how to manage their money. They spend it all the summer, and then in the winter, they're broke. What can we do to help them learn a little bit? That no one's taught them how to manage money. They didn't learn it from their parents. They don't learn it in school. No one's taught them. How can you give them skills that just help them lead a better life? Because, again, they're going to trust you, they're going to act trusting, they're going to feel like they belong if you're making them just a better human being overall. And then, now they're not missing that mortgage payment, and now they're far more productive, and they're far safer. Recognition and growth. You celebrate your people. There was a story I read, it was this old logging road, it was icy in the winter, and there was this guy, Tony, that would need to sand the road so the sleds could get down safely. But he was just an asshole. I mean, just bitter old guy. We all know kind of a Tony in this industry. They're out there. Just super bitter. And so this young foreman gets promoted to be the supervisor. And he goes to the superintendent of the operation and says, I'm going to go fire Tony now that I'm the boss. And the superintendent says, I'm not going to step on your toes. You can make your decisions. You're the supervisor now. But just so you know, since Tony's been on that hill, for 8 years we haven't had an accident. That was the most dangerous hill in the entire area. We have not had one accident. And also just bear in mind that your brother comes down that hill every day. And so he goes over to Tony, and he says, Tony, I was going to fire you, but I'm not. And Tony kind of looks up at him, curious now. And he proceeds to tell him the nice things the supervisor said. But no one had ever told Tony this. The next day, everybody's like, what happened to Tony? He's out there, he's in a great mood. He's talking to people. He's working even harder than he was before. All that changed was just a little bit of appreciation, a little bit of celebration. So it doesn't mean throwing people birthday parties, but it's how do we recognize people? Human beings, they like to feel special. They like to feel special. Do you tell your story? Social media is a free tool. Free tool. There's 100 reasons why you shouldn't be on social media, but you're leaving a lot on the table if you're not taking advantage of it. And you might not be on social media. Maybe your people aren't even on social media. But the coolest things I see, I'll post a picture like this. A guy out there working. And it'll be his spouse will comment on it, saying, that's my husband, or that's my wife. Or even cooler, his kids will comment on it. That's my dad. That's my mom. Do you know what that does for someone from a recognition standpoint? That's the most special thing they could ever hear. That their child is proud of their work. Proud of their work. How do you tell your story? Do you even tell your story? So most of the industry still doesn't. And we're all wondering why people don't want to come to work for us. Well, they don't even know we exist. And then, do you ask your people where they want to go? I've seen so many people leaving companies right now because they feel like there's just no more growth potential. And the reality is, I look at the company, I'm like, there's so much growth potential there. They just haven't had that conversation. They're a great person, they're hungry, they want to stay there, they don't want to go somewhere else, but they feel like they've hit that limit. And some people like this room, it's like, what's next? Yeah, I want to become vice president, or I want to own a company, whatever it is. But some people just want growth in a different way. Maybe it's somebody that's been on municipal jobs, and they want to go over to the DOT side. I don't know what it is, and I know businesses aren't always that flexible, but do you even have conversations with your people to determine what interests them, where they want to go, and how you can help them get there? Maybe it's not tomorrow, but maybe 6 months from now, absolutely we can get you over there. And now they're learning a totally different type of work, and now they're feeling like they're growing, and now they're performing even better, and now you're making more money. Do you have those conversations with your people? Sure, maybe they might happen in the office, but do they happen with the people in the field? And finally, purpose and full potential. Is your mission defined? This is one of the key areas we can compete with any other industry on. We're essential, right? We serve an amazing purpose, but too often it just doesn't really make sense. We build projects safely, efficiently, with quality, on time. That's all fantastic. That's great. But that doesn't mean anything to the guy on the back of a paver, for example. That means nothing. That doesn't tie back their hard work to how they're making the community better. So on every project, say they're paving this new subdivision with 123 lots. Is it talked about daily? We're paving these roads so that 123 families can get to their homes every day as a result of that work. Tying back that sense of purpose to what they do every day. It makes that hard work way more worthwhile. They're already doing the hard work. We already have the sense of purpose. We just don't articulate it. Again, we're good at building things. We're not good at articulating some things. But on every project, what's the purpose of what we're doing today? How does it serve the community? Can your people make decisions? I just heard a story the other day. The boss walks up. There's no shoring in the trench. That's a big no-no. He goes over to the foreman. What's going on? You know better. He says, well, I've put in my request to the office. It hasn't been approved yet. That's crazy. The foreman can't make the decision
to get shoring without office approval. And that sounds crazy, but that happens every day on job sites. Every day. Oftentimes the office is the one making the decisions. The office is most informed big picture, but the field is they're the ones closest to the work. How do you get more in between? How do you get the buy-in from the field? How do you allow them to make the decisions, to come up with a plan? Hey, we need to go pave this stretch. How would you do it? Okay, all right, I see your plan. We don't have that paver available. We have this one. So that's going to change things. Oh, yeah, I get it. And then you come up with a plan that the crew takes full ownership of. Do they have the ability to make decisions? And do you consider your people's gifts? Too often, that's a haul truck, so that's a haul truck driver. It's not, though. It's a human being. Every haul truck driver is a little different. Some are better at some things than others. So do you get out to the field? Do you understand your people enough to know what that haul truck driver is gifted at? And how can you get them on that path so that they can use their gifts and skills so that they're going in the right direction and so that, again, you're more productive at the end of the day. And I know I'm speaking very idealistically, but this is just a general mindset. Just a general mindset. People are not tools, they're people. And if we approach this from a people standpoint, everything's going to start to resolve itself. So everybody's going to be on kind of a different part of this. Maybe you do need to go reevaluate. Let's just make sure we have the right benefits offered to our people that they need, for example. Or maybe you're like, yeah, we're kicking ass at all this. We don't have any workforce problem. Everybody has a role to play. Where can you start? What can you do? Just something. Everybody here can do something. And maybe it starts with pay. Maybe you already have it figured out. Maybe it's teaching others. Because, as was pointed out earlier, we're all on the same team here. We're all on the same team. It doesn't matter if you have it figured out or not. You're still only as good as the collective industry is long term. So just imagine if we do this. If we meet, we pay, benefits, flexibility, our people feel trusted, they feel like they belong, they're recognized, they're growing, and ultimately they're fulfilling a greater purpose beyond themselves. And they're feeling like they're aligned with their potential as a human. Just imagine our society viewing our profession as noble. I saw a study the other day. What's a noble profession? Think a firefighter, a teacher. They work hard, they serve others, they're highly educated. We work hard, we serve others, we're highly educated, not in a traditional sense, but I couldn't run a paper. That's an educated role. We should have society viewing us as noble. We're right there. Children growing up wanting to be construction workers and their parents proud of their choice. And ultimately no workforce challenge. The saying is, if you build it, they will come. Jordan Peterson has the saying, if everybody just did their dishes at their house, within their household, society would start to repair itself overnight. That's what we need to do as a construction industry. What are our dishes within our organizations? And maybe we're making more money than we've ever made before. We have more backlog than ever before, but we all know we have a problem right now. So what are those dishes we can all do? If all of us, we all in this room, go do our part, we can overcome this challenge, without a doubt. And not only will we overcome it, I'm not saying do all of this and make less money. I'm saying this is the way to being more profitable than ever before. Than ever before. So we have a choice to make. We can either sit on the sideline and just hope it resolves itself. Just hope. Kind of just, I don't know, hope this figures itself out. Maybe we'll just automate everything. I don't know. But that's what's going to happen. This was Jackson, Mississippi. We had a whole city without water. And that sounds crazy. But our infrastructure is only getting older. If we don't fill that void, that becomes the norm. And sure, okay, not only is your company at risk, but now think about your children. How successful can your children be in whatever role they want to be successful in without consistent drinking water? That sounds crazy. But that is what will happen if we can't fill this void that society has. Or we can say, hey, we've gotten here, we're more successful than ever before, we have really done an amazing job. But And that's not to say what we're doing is necessarily wrong. We just need to do something different because the world has changed. We're operating just in a different world now than we used to be operating in. So how can we invest in our people just a little bit more? How can we care for our people? How can we think just a little differently? We don't need to, I'm not saying we need to go all the way over there. Just, what's that next little step? Every one of us, what's that next little step I can make to focus on our people just a little bit more? And everybody's going to be a little bit different. But ultimately, we will have an amazing industry. We're very aligned with human nature. Amazing industry, people proud, building things. And then if we have millions of proud people in our industry going home, and now they're proud about what they do, and their kids are seeing that, their communities are seeing that, that's how you change the narrative. That's how our industry becomes noble. That's how. It's not just one magic potion, one easy button that we can press. It's going to take a little bit, but a company like APAI did it in, 4 or 5 years. It doesn't take that long. It doesn't take that long. And call me naive. I'm very naive. I have to be naive. But I don't see a better option right now. I don't see a better option. So, where can you start? Again, maybe it's pay, or maybe you have everything figured out. How can I be a better role model for those construction companies in my community as well? Because I'm only as good as they are. And then all in between. How can I get out into the field just a little bit more? How can I trust our people just a little bit more? How can I celebrate our people a little bit more? How can we tell our story better? Just something. We all do something. We'll start to see a dramatic difference. If you'd like to see our work, that's where you can follow on social media. Give me a shout, email me, call me. We'd love to chat. And thanks for having me.